The opposition.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It is my firm belief that the first responsibility of any government is to protect the public. It is a principle that is supported by the Liberal National Party and, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is a principle that is supported by millions of Queenslanders. Modern governments have a huge number of responsibilities, but the safety of the public remains the most important to them. The public expects politicians to keep them safe from those who would harm them. The Liberal National Party will always keep our families safe, our streets safe and our communities safe. Mr Deputy Speaker, in government we recruited more than 800 extra police and we gave them the tools to fight crime. We gave the victims a voice. We introduced the toughest sex offender laws in Australia. We increased the non-parole period for murder to 20 years. And we smashed Queensland's outlaw motorcycle gangs. We made community safety a priority. So when the Supreme Court rejected an application to extend the supervision order on Robert Fardon, the LNP was deeply concerned. We immediately urged the government to pursue all available avenues to ensure his supervision continued. The Attorney-General and the Premier dithered for days before saying they would appeal the decision. When we asked the Premier what she would do if the appeal failed, the Premier refused point-blank to answer that question. There was no valid reason for the Premier not to respond. The Premier chose. So let me say that again, Mr Deputy Speaker. The Premier of this state chose to say nothing. That's what we have come to expect from this open and apparently transparent government. What a joke. What a joke. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, while Labor dithers on crime, the LNP acts, and we all know urgent action is needed. The Labor Party is reluctant to link legislation with any identified individual. Let's be open and transparent. The bill we had hoped to put before Parliament today has been prompted by the possible end of the supervision order imposed on Robert John Fardon. Labor seems to have forgotten that the Attorney-General herself has already made a public statement on this case, naming this man. The Attorney-General's statement said, and I quote, "I want Robert Fardon to be strictly supervised in the community."
She did it.
She did. I take that interjection. That is the quote from the Attorney-General.
Order. Order. Members. Call the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. But when the opposition wants to talk about this individual, Labor says that this topic should be off limits.
Double standards.
Well, the LNP will discuss this problem and we will act on it too, because that is our job. And I'm not worried by Labor's lectures over there, but I am afraid of what might happen if this man is released unsupervised into the community. Let's put the facts on the table. Fardon has sexually abused and raped children. Fardon has wounded children. Just 20 days after he was released from prison in 1988, he raped and brutally assaulted a woman. Mr Deputy Speaker, the women and children of Queensland, all of them, have the right to be safe from offenders like this man. The rights of victims should matter. And the rights of victims should matter more than repeated rapists. Mr Deputy Speaker, the LNP will defend those rights with the Protecting Queenslanders from Violent and Child Sex Offenders Amendment Bill. Unlike the legislation the panicking Palaszczuk government announced yesterday, the LNP's bill will keep people like Robert Fardon supervision order in place, and our bill will apply to all violent, repeat sexual offenders. So I'm happy to repeat that. The LNP's bill will apply to all violent, repeat sexual offenders. And that is in distinct difference to the Labor bill. The LNP bill will also include indefinite GPS tracking of all violent, repeat sexual offenders. Now, we heard in this chamber today the police minister admit, the police minister say that under the Labor bill, it could have a GPS tracker. Could have a GPS tracker. Well, under the LNP's bill, it would have a GPS tracker. That's the difference. That's the difference. Mr. Deputy Speaker, now while Labor may think that they're moving this bill as a step in the right direction, it simply does not go far enough. If Labor's bill is enacted, it will still allow Fardon to be freed from the strict supervision he is now subject to. The LNP's much stronger bill has rattled those opposite. The much stronger bill has rattled the Palaszczuk government, but they protest too much. They are so sensitive because they know that they have dropped the ball on protecting the public. If they were honest with Queenslanders, it wouldn't have been down to the opposition to have to initiate this legislation. Labor should have been faster. What have they been doing, Mr. Deputy Speaker? They should have been first out of the blocks, because we know that this is a government that rests on its record, and that record is being soft on crime. The government is so out of touch with community sentiment, so out of touch with community, it is soft on crime. The evidence is overwhelming. Mr. Deputy Speaker, under this Palaszczuk government, assaults have increased by 31%. Under this Palaszczuk government, robberies have increased by 63%. Under this Palaszczuk government, armed robbery is up by 47%. That's what Labor has achieved in its 4 years. It is a shocking record of failure. Is it any wonder, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the bikies are back under this Palaszczuk government? It was the LNP that rang the bikies out of town, but under Labor, they're back. And what are they doing? Well, they're doing donuts in front of our police stations. That's what the bikies are doing. Open defiance. I take that interjection. Those people, those thugs, those criminals are laughing in the face of these incompetent Labor members on that side. Mr. Deputy Speaker, and again, we saw the dithering of Labor when the brute who fatally bashed toddler Mason Jet Lee was jailed for a non-parole period of just 6 years. It took public outcry for the Palaszczuk government.
One moment, Leader of the Opposition. Your point of order? I'll make sure that we conduct this debate with the respect that it needs. Decision has been made, and it stands by that. My apologies, Leader of the Opposition. Decision has been made. No further discussion around that. I'll now call the Leader of the Opposition to conclude your contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And unlike those on the other side, the law school I went to was at the University of the Real World, the university that actually gets out and listens to the people in our community. Absolutely. Whose side are they on, Mr. Deputy Speaker?
Order. Order. Minister. Order. I call the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I see the Minister laughing at the AG behind her. She's going, you should have gone to the university that I went to. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the community have spoken. The community demanded action. The community and the LNP demanded action, and it took the dithering Palaszczuk government way too long to actually step up and do something. No wonder they're laughing over there. No wonder they're embarrassed, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well, they should be embarrassed, because this is a government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is soft on crime, that actually do not understand community sentiment.
Order. Members. Members, I'm having difficulty listening to the Leader of the Opposition. Members from the non-government side, I'm specifically speaking to those members. I call the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And not only is the Palaszczuk government completely embarrassed about how soft on crime they are and the effect on our community, they are using so much arrogance that they now won't even allow the LNP, alternative legislation, to be discussed right here in this parliament. It is a shame on this government, and it's a shame they are so soft on crime.
Mr Speaker.
Thank you.